All right, we're back with the second part of this week's lesson. We're going to be looking at Germany post World War One. So we're talking here, kind of the effects of the Treaty of Versailles. The last part here, the video, we looked at the different provisions that were in this treaty. So now let's see how it affects the pretty much one country that was hit the hardest by the Treaty of Versailles. Let's take a look at Germany. So after World War One, Germany is going to reform its government into something new called the Weimar Republic. So this was going to be a democratic government. So they were going to hold elections for their leaders that formed after World War One. And this government is going to be heavily focused on paying back those reparations from the Treaty of Versailles. So remember in the last video, we talked about the fact that Germany was given this pretty much the bill, right, for World War One. They said they had to pay $33 billion to put Europe back together. Absolutely almost unreachable amount of money for them to pay back. But the people of Germany were really against going to another war, right? They don't want to have to go back to fighting. World War One was 4 years long and incredibly brutal. Millions of lives were lost. And so the idea was if we pay back these reparations, or if we at least put forward our best effort to pay back these reparations, we hopefully can prevent another war from happening. So here we're going to take a look at this painting. This painting's called Gray Days, and it was painted in 1921. And I think this painting does a good job of kind of describing or showing kind of what was happening in Germany after World War One. So this is the question that's on your document here that you're going to be looking at. How does this painting depict life for the German people? What do you see in the painting? What mood is portrayed? And then is there anything else interesting that stands out to you? So go ahead and pause the video here for a second. I'll give you guys a chance to really look at the painting, analyze some of the details here, see if there's anything that stands out to you. So pause the video here, and I'll be back in a second. We'll talk about some of my thoughts that I see. So this painting has a few things here that stand out to me. First of all, it's called Gray Days, and really that's kind of what stands out to me first, right, is the color palette. The fact that this is pretty bleak. There's not a whole lot here that stands out as vibrant, or, vibrant is usually seen as happy. It's not a very happy painting. We've got this guy in front here. He looks kind of like a businessman. He's got this weird look on his face, right? That's just part of the art style that the artist used. But we've also got the other guy right behind him here. We can tell must have been part of the military. He's got kind of the military garb on. But some of the things that stand out to me are the fact that he's got a walking cane. If you look really closely, you can see that he doesn't have a right hand. So it's likely that he fought in World War One and came back injured from it, and he's looking at the ground. He doesn't look very happy. Things are once again kind of bleak. The whole painting even just kind of looks like it's covered in dirt, right? Like up here you can kind of see it's just dark and moody. We've got the factory back here. We've got another worker kind of looking down, kind of just faceless, walking. So this really isn't a happy painting, and it does a good job, I think, of portraying what the German people were doing. They were trying to rebuild. We've got this wall here that's starting to go up, but the overall mood is not very good. Probably the biggest problem that comes from the Treaty of Versailles and its effect on Germany is the fact that in order to pay debt, Germany accidentally essentially ruins its currency. They're going to go through something called massive inflation. So essentially what that means is their currency is going to take more and more of that currency to pay for things. So looking at the chart here, in 1914, we're comparing it to the US dollar. So a German mark, consider that kind of their currency here. It took 4.2 marks to have one US dollar in 1914. So a German mark, essentially, if we're going to compare it, was like a quarter, right? If you had one German mark, you had one US quarter. We'll see at the end of the war in 1919, it's a little bit less valuable. You need 14 German marks in order to have a US dollar, so it's worth a lot less. Maybe it's closer to the value of a dime. And then you can see it just gets worse and worse to the point where, at its worst, this number is just astronomical. In November of 1923, you needed 4 trillion marks to have 1 US dollar. So that currency that, I don't know, maybe you needed 4 marks to buy a loaf of bread. Well, now you need 4.2 trillion marks to buy a loaf of bread. Think about that. Imagine if our currency today did something like this. You have, say, $10 in your wallet or something. You know, what can you buy now? You can buy maybe a couple sodas, some candy, things like that. Now imagine you need about $400,000 to buy those same things. And that happens in like just a few years. It gets to the point where money becomes so worthless that people stop picking it up, right? These are German marks on the ground. These are, imagine, like dollar bills just on the ground, and this guy's just sweeping them up. They had no value. It took, I mean, people say, wait, why didn't people stop and pick it up? It's free money. Well, they didn't stop and pick it up because you needed 4 trillion of them to have $1. That's absolutely worthless. So people started to find other uses for them. So we've got this woman here putting it into, this is a furnace. She's burning her money literally because it was more useful as kindling to start a fire than it was to pay for anything that you might need. A couple more pictures here. We've got some kids with stacks of money, and they're just using them as building blocks. There's no other purpose to it, right? Even it looks like a lot of money, right? You couldn't buy anything even with what these kids have right here. So it was pretty worthless. This guy over here found his own use for it. You know, dollar bills, if you feel one, they're fairly thick. So he's using it as a wallpaper because it made for good insulation, right? You're able to possibly keep your house warm through the winter by painting your dollars to it. So money is going to become pretty much worthless in Germany. Luckily for the people of Germany, though, they are in a democracy. So that means they get to vote on who they're going to have as their next leader. So you can take a look at the questions here, but now we have election time. So it's a democracy. So as citizens, you are going to be allowed to vote for the next leader. So we have 2 links here that I want you to take a look at. So first is the candidates link. If you take a look, it'll lead you to this document here. I'm not going to read this out loud, but what I want you to do is I want you to read through the 3 candidates. Imagine you are a person in Germany. Your currency is worthless. The Treaty of Versailles is kind of sticking it to your country. And you get to vote. So read through the 3 candidates and make your decision. And then the second link here, we've got a link to a Google form. I'm kind of curious. I want to see who you guys would vote for in this election of 1930. I put 2020, but I guess I could say 1930. And I'll share those results towards the end of the week here, and we'll see just who you voted for in this election. So things in Germany are not looking too bright, and you'll kind of see the effects of that when you read in part 3.